start, I'm going to start the recording of today's workshop. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I'm really excited about today's workshop. We've had this stock market challenge now for several years in the state of Florida, a couple of decades really. And I have been working with teachers on this for a while, but I haven't had an opportunity to have a guest speaker come in with a lot more knowledge and insight on the stock market challenge than I have. So there's a lot of really challenging things about this pandemic that we're going through right now, but one of the really wonderful things that's come out of it is that it has made it a lot easier to have these fantastic speakers coming in from all over the place to be able to speak directly to teachers in small groups in our living rooms really, or our guest rooms, or our home offices, or our classrooms. So that's a really exciting thing. We've got that small group feel, but also some out-of-town speakers that we wouldn't necessarily be able to have in a face-to-face. So a little bit about me. I know a couple of you guys, but there are several people who are in the workshop today that are new to me, so I'm probably new to you. My name is Susan Riley. I am a professor of economics at Florida State College at Jacksonville. I'm also the director for the Center on Economic and Financial Education at FSCJ. And my role as FSCJ's director for Center on Economic and Financial Education, I do a lot of these teacher workshops through the Florida Council. The Florida Council generously provides funding in order to be able to support these workshops. So a big thank you to the Florida Council and all of the wonderful work that they do. I am a Jacksonville native. I was born just outside of Jacksonville in Clay County. I've had my former high school teachers show up to my workshops, which is kind of cool. I love Northeast Florida, which is why I came back after I finished I came back before I finished my PhD. I got my PhD in economics from American University in Washington, D.C. I have a bachelor's degree in economics from University of Central Florida. I love economics. I think that it is a really engaging and diverse and flexible a way to think about the world. It adds a lot of insight to ways that get lots of insight into human behavior, I think. So one of those places that we are able to use economics as a way to really engage students and think about things in a different way is with the stock market challenge and these other sorts of games and contests that the Florida Council runs. So at the end of the workshop, I'm going to show you guys some additional games and programs that the Florida Council is running and programs that we're running here at FSCJ, including some upcoming workshops. And this semester is absolutely full of workshops. And the next week, I have 2 workshops on top of this one. And if we go a little further than that, I've got another 2, including some additional guest speakers that I'm very excited to listen to. Now, tonight's speaker is Kevin Smith. Kevin is the Director for Product Development at StockTrack. StockTrack is the organization that built the Stock Market Challenge, and he is very involved in the continued development and build out of that platform, including the expansion into the budget game. He is very involved on all of the platforms that StockTrack provides. He has a background in economics, and he's done a lot of lesson development, including many of the lessons that you'll learn about today. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, and welcome, Kevin.
Hi, thank you. Yep, my name is Kevin Smith. I work with StockTrack. my background, I got my bachelor's degree in political science with economics, master's degree in economics, another master's degree in public administration, and I'm working on a third one for an MBA. So I keep myself busy in the evenings. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Am I the presenter yet?
You should be.
I don't think so.
If not, here, let me give it to you again then. Let me give it to you. There you go. Now you do.
Great. So, just before I get started here, if anybody can say in the chat if you've used the Florida SMC before, or if this is your first time looking at it. Got a first timer. Yes, we have some other people who have seen it before. So if you've seen it before, or if it's your first time, you're going to have quite a lot because we've actually made quite a few changes to the SMC for this semester to make everybody's life a lot easier. So if you haven't used it before, at a high level, the Florida SMC is a beautiful, sublime, eternally useful learning platform that the Florida Council makes available for all schools in Florida for free. It works at every grade level because there's different activities you can use at different levels. I would say of the total students we see in it, I would say the bulk are high schoolers, but we have plenty of elementary schools coming too, especially the gifted classrooms. If you used it before, you know there is the stock market game as part of it, but as of this spring, actually we kind of did a soft route in the fall. We added a new budgeting game where students learn a little bit about budgeting, spending, and credit. And we also have a bunch of lessons and curriculum and assessment built into it, all as supplements. So, like I just said, there's the three major components. There's a stock market game. If you've used Florida SMC before, you've seen this. It's pretty straightforward. Your students get $100,000, and they can invest it in any companies that they want. They manage their portfolio over the duration of the 10-week program, and the Florida Council gives out prizes across the state to the winners, both by region and by grade level. So the prizes and rankings is a really good way to keep the students engaged, while the act of actually building a portfolio does a lot to teach about economics, just understanding what companies are. And my personal favorite is it just kind of reduces the anxiety that students have between like investing and long-term money management and where they are today. Just the act of buying a stock in the stock market game does wonders for the way students look at the world and see how their personal finances can evolve. The budgeting game is brand new. I'm going to talk about that more towards the end of the presentation. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on the stock game, but the lessons go throughout. So if you use the stock market game, you might have seen that we have a feature that's called assignments that's built into the platform. This has just kind of been there as a supplement where there's some extra lessons in there, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can actually use these in your class and what's available at a high level. Because if you know it's there, you can use it in your class. If you don't know it's there, then you probably won't focus on it too much. First and foremost, for everybody who is here, registering for the challenge is completely free. You can find the registration link at fce.org, the Florida Council's website, or the floridasms.stocktrack.com, which is the actual SMC's main website. A single registration gives you access to all the resources, so you don't need to use everything, but it's just one step to get everything. Registration is very easy, so if I pull up the page here so you can see it, I'm at floridasmc.com. I go to register for free, and all you do is fill out the form. You choose your username and password. Date of birth, we don't allow students to register directly because we don't collect any information from any students. So you have to prove that you're over 18 or it won't let you in. Name, school, so all of these fields are actually quite important for the Florida Council because when they seek funding from their sponsors, they like to know that they're getting a certain amount of usage in certain parts of the state. So for example, some donors might actually focus just on the Jacksonville area, And so knowing that you're from Jacksonville, we get a lot of Jacksonville schools coming here, actually helps quite a bit in keeping these programs funded and free for the entire state. For your student logins, actually, what you'll do is you'll choose a username. I usually recommend you use your school's mascot. So my high school was a knight. The number of students is the total number of students in your class. So let's say I have 10 students. Number of teams, historically with the stock game, and especially for younger students, they would have students work together in teams of groups of two or three. And if you're looking for a lot of the lesson plans that are out there talking about the stock game, stock games have been around since the 70s, and a lot of times it is a group project. But we've found that especially if the students aren't in the classroom, and if you really want to get a good boost of engagement, it works best if you have one student per account. That goes double when you start talking about the learning exercises, the assignments, and the budget game, because if you have students working in teams, you're not able to see what one student or another has done. If you have each student with their own account, then everybody's responsible. They can still work together as teams and come up with joint strategies, but it works best if every student has their own login. Your region and county, if you're Title I eligible, and again, this is a big important one to help the SMC keep its funding. Class subject, I'm going to go with economics, my personal favorite, grade level, and get registered. So once you fill it out and you click register, the system will give you all of the accounts that you need for your students, and you'll just hand these out to your class. So one username, one password. You'll also get a registration confirmation email with this information, so you don't need to memorize it all right here. You'll have a copy of it. You'll also have access to this inside the Florida SMC website. I'll go through your teacher reports in more detail, but you can find your students' login information anytime you need to help them access their accounts. So we do as much as we can to make it very easy to get registered and keep your students able to access it, because technology is always one of the biggest hurdles in getting especially the younger students where they need to be. So participation FAQ, we get a lot of questions from teachers who are registering for the first time about what they're doing. First, you can register early, and we highly, Elizabeth said she was not seeing the screen I was referring to. What do you see right now, actually? Because it looks like it is appearing in the screen share at the bottom of the page.
I see what is the Florida SMC, and that's it.
Okay, let me stop sharing and reshare to see if that resets it. It should now have an FAQ. Okay, perfect. So first, highly encourage everybody to register early. The actual competition for prizes and things doesn't start until February 1st. But if you register early, you can get in there early. Your students can log in early. Your students even start trading early. It's just that we will reset everything back to the start before the official trading period begins. The classes that go in there early and let the students poke around a little bit usually have an easier time to get started, because especially if your students are at home at any time, they can look at it at their leisure. And there's tutorial videos and all kinds of things. You don't need to worry about meeting any deadlines. If you've participated before, you don't need to re-register from scratch. You can just log in with your same teacher account. And what will happen is that, can you still see my screen? Now it should be showing the Florida SMC website. Okay, perfect. If you're coming in again, what will happen is it'll take you to a new join challenge page, and it'll just let you join the new one with your same login. So it makes your life a lot easier because you don't have to fill the whole form out again. And the most important thing is you don't need to use every part that's available. There is a lot of stuff available in the SMC, especially going into the assignments and the budgeting again that I mentioned. You don't need to participate in the stock game for the full 10-week program. The vast majority of schools do not. If you can happen to start talking about investments towards the end of the semester, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to get into the SMC that early. Your class might not get prizes for the rankings, but you can still join late, you can still participate late. And the students still get a lot out of it regardless of when you jump into it. So if you don't think the contest dates will work out with your class outline, don't worry about it. It's just a recommendation. Generally speaking, anytime you're talking about stock market or investing, you want as long a time period as possible, which is why we have the 10-week program. But most classes are not going to talk about stocks every week of class, so don't worry too much about it if you can't fit things in. So next I'm going to talk about the student experience, and from here it's going to look quite different if you've used the SMC before, because we changed a lot of stuff over the winter break. So first, we launched a brand new dashboard. When your students log in, they're going to see everything in the SMC in one place. That way they're kind of pointed in the right direction of where they should be starting. So the actual parts that you're going to look at, on the left side of the page here, these are the articles and assignments that I mentioned. The articles and assignments, if I go into the Florida SMC website, they are, we have about, I think 60 articles and activities covering personal finance, economics, and investing. There's two sets here. We have a high school assignment, we have an elementary and middle school assignment. The high school one has a bunch of articles and videos. They usually are about 1,000 to 2,000 words. At the end of each one, there's infographics, there's videos, and all kinds of stuff, and there's a quiz at the end where students take the quiz to show they've completed this lesson. We align these to the both the National Council and the Jumpstart standards, and I believe Florida uses the Jumpstart standards for personal finance. And we can provide you a list of which ones line up with which standards. But this is how things extend beyond just a stock game. So if I look in here at all of the stuff available for these assignments, where did I put it? Here we are. I have some basic stuff for the stock market. These first 10 items here is what a typical student would need to know in order to do the stock game, and it's really heavy on just tutorials of what is a stock and how would they make a trade. Going down into our intermediate stuff, we talk about mutual funds, index funds, bonds, and things like that. Personal finance, we have a combination of some activities. So the activities are things like using a calculator to estimate when you would be able to retire. So I want to be able to retire when I'm 65. I have this much saved now. I can play around with interest rates and inflation and see how long it's going to take me to be a millionaire. Also, we have more articles on budgeting, spending plans, credit cards, debit cards for any personal finance classes. On the economics side, we actually have a lot more available. These talk about the Federal Reserve, stock market crashes, the business cycle, labor and productivity, risk and comparative advantage. There's quite a lot in here covering economic topics. Career prep, things about building a resume, doing a job interview. We do have a few lessons on business topics like the accounting cycle, management theories, and marketing. And at the very bottom here, we have our mathematics topics. And the math topics really is talking about using the data the students are getting from the stock game and putting that into spreadsheets and doing things like making charts, or just putting data into a spreadsheet and formatting it to look like a good report, or calculating their profit and loss from their trades, things like that. So basic stuff using that data they're generating to get a more active exercise out of it. Now, I know we have a lot of elementary and middle school classes, and a lot of this is going to be above the head, but we have a different one for elementary and middle school, which really breaks it down to just some elementary videos and quizzes on the stock game itself. So Stocks Made Easy, for example, it's just a short, I believe it's a 2-minute video talking about what is a stock, and then a short 3-question pop quiz on that video. So if you're using this in a gifted class especially, this is a really good way to introduce these concepts and make sure the students know what they're doing when you're actually presenting them with a stock game. Going back to the dashboard where I started from, the next up is my portfolio. So once I've started making trades, I have my snapshot of my portfolio showing all of my holdings. So students will see this for the first time when they log in. If they go back into their account on the site, there's a lot of different ways for students to see their holdings, which depending on what they find easiest to look at. So for example, this is my portfolio that I built as a test. This is what we call the list view, which has things like the symbol of the company I'm trading. It has the name of the company, what industry they're in, and a bunch of other information, along with my total return and my total profit and loss. Or if I prefer a more visual look, I can look at a chart showing how these stocks' prices change for the last day, month, or year. We also color code it to make it a little bit easier for students to follow. All the green stuff is stuff where I'm making money. If there's red, I'm losing money. It looks like so far I'm doing pretty well with my stock picks. All throughout the platform, students are prompted with that assignment showing all those other learning modules as well. So showing how long there is left and their total completion on it. They don't need to complete everything. Like I said, don't feel obligated to try to use every resource available. But as the teacher, if you go in and you see a couple topics that you'd like them to look at while they're looking at their stock portfolio, you can just point them out and ask them to complete that. As the teacher, you have reports where you can see the progress of each student on all those tasks. Next up is the stats from the student's budgeting game. So I'll talk again about the budgeting game a little bit towards the end, but the budgeting game is also right here so the students can see it all in one place. And towards the bottom here, the Florida SMC, as of this semester, has a gamification engine built into it, where students earn badges and rewards for completing certain tasks. So when they finish some of those lessons in the assignment library, they're going to earn a badge. When they make a certain number of trades, they can earn a badge. Making certain actions in the budget game can earn them badges. When students earn badges, they can pick one they want to show off, and that appears in the rankings page. So for example, if I go to my achievements that I've earned so far, I think so far I really just earned the make a first trade. So I can make that as my active badge. I'm making some progress towards getting a badge for trading a certain number of stocks, and I'm making some progress on completing my tutorials. When I do, I'll get badges, and I can level up these badges by doing those actions and improving my mastery of each subject. Now that I have my badge set, if I go to my rankings page, my badge appears next to my username across with all the other students. So if another student comes in here and sees my badge, they can also click on me to see all the other badges I've earned. Because we're really trying to encourage the students to explore the platform. We know that you're not going to be able to cover everything there is available in your class, but you're going to have some students who might want to push a little bit beyond what you're able to cover, which is great. That's what we really want to encourage, is that exploration and learning on their own. And you'll notice there's a lot of stuff on that page, but don't worry about it, because starting this spring, I can't show it yet because it's not launched yet, but we have what's called an onboarding tour. So the first time a student or a teacher logs in, starting in early February, it's going to walk them through all the different pages. It's going to walk them through what they're looking at to kind of handhold them and make it a lot easier. And if you look closely, you'll see that on all pages there is a live chat support, which goes to our support team, who is standing by to answer both your questions and your students. So if they're not sure about something, we have support agents standing by to help everybody get started and everybody manage things easily and quickly. So the portfolio and trading, I'm just going to go through and show you actually what it looks like to make a trade and build a portfolio really quick so you see what it's like. I'm here in my test account. Actually, no, this one's my test account. The actual SMC is not available for trading yet. So I came into my portfolio for the first time. I don't have any stocks yet. What we have here is the most popularly traded stocks from last semester in the SMC, so it gives students kind of a trading idea of how to get started. In either case, what they would do is they go up to trading, and they would go to trade a stock or an ETF. Mutual funds and bonds are also available. They would just enter the ticker symbol of what they want to trade, but especially if you're working with younger students, they might not know the ticker symbol. So they can just start typing the company name, and we'll show them the symbols that match. So once they enter the symbol, we have the logo to make sure they have the right company. We have the price of this stock, so they have an idea of how much it's going to cost them, and a chart showing how this stock's price has changed. This chart is for the last day, and again, it's green if the stock is making money today, it's red if it's losing money. If you do have older students in high school who might really be into investing, there's also some advanced charts available where they can change the time horizons, they can compare all kinds of stuff. For most younger students, they're going to stick with the simple color codes. If I scroll down, I have a lot of information about this stock. So who are they, what did they do is in the company profile. Company news, so news stories mentioning this stock, so why is its price going up and down. Analyst ratings, so why is the stock's price, or what is Wall Street saying about this stock? So, it's a good thing to check this before you buy. Price history, so this has charts showing how the stock's price has moved over time. Financial statements, so income statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements going annually or quarterly going back 20 years, and detailed quote information with PE ratios and all kinds of stuff. Now for elementary and middle school students, this is going to be a little bit above their head, which is kind of why we put it below the main trading page. But if you do have more advanced students, or if you have high school students who are really interested in this, the information is available to them. Now that I'm ready, I like Amazon. The analyst rating said it was great. I'm going to type my quantity of how many shares I want to buy. So just 2 shares, I suppose, which will give me a oh, I already used all my buying power already, actually. So I'm going to sell my stock. So I enter it. I have an estimated cost of how much, in this case I'm selling Ford, so I'm getting $906. I click preview. And this is an important part. Before students can make their trade, they have to write why they're doing it. So in this case, I'm selling Ford because price already went up and I think it's at the peak. I confirm and my order goes to the market. So right now the markets are closed. It's after 4 p.m. So this order is going to be pending. But if this was during the day, that order would go through immediately. So the students can see their buys and sells right away. There's no delay. So if I go back to my portfolio, you actually see Ford is still pending here, but it's waiting to sell here. Screen share seems stuck again. So let me stop and restart. How about now? Okay, great. So making a trade is super easy. Looking at a student's portfolio is pretty straightforward. Probably the most popular page on the site is under my portfolio, the rankings page, which is the rankings of the stock game. So we have rankings built in here overall, which is all time. We also have weekly and monthly rankings. So if you really want to get your students engaged, you can look at the weekly rankings and just see who's moving up and down. Because generally speaking, each student in your class is probably going to be at the top of the weekly rankings at some point, which if a student is always at the bottom of the rankings, they have a chance of losing interest. So focusing on these shorter terms can be helpful, even though it's not necessarily what we care about in the long term. You can also filter down, so just your class. If you have this one, it's just the students in your class. Grade is all of these students at your grade level in the state, and region is the students in your specific region of the state. So these are what are used for the prizes that the Florida Council issues, but they're also pretty good if the students just want to see the other students at their grade level. Otherwise, the portfolio has account balances can show a lot of things like how much dividends have the students received or commissions charged. They can look at their transaction history to see their transactions over time. It's all pretty straightforward. All of this stuff the students can export either as a spreadsheet that they can use or to Google Drive as a Google Sheet. In either case, it is useful for the students. Depending on the age level of the students, they may or may not actually be interested in pulling that kind of data out. We also have research tools. So our advanced quotes page has a lot of the same stuff that we had from the trading page, but there's also even more stuff like accounting ratios and what are the markets as a whole doing. We're adding in some mutual fund research tools as well ahead of the official start date. Each time my students try to log in, they receive an error message. I will have to look into that. I would suspect that the students' accounts might have already ended, so they might be older accounts, but I would need a couple examples of the accounts and we can test it out for you. And as the teacher, you have access to that live chat. So during the day, if you have students who are trying to log in, they can't, our support team will help you right away. So we'll do what we can for you. Otherwise, up here we have trading ideas. So if you remember when I first logged in, I had those rotating lists of stocks. If I want to see that again, it's under my trading ideas. And we also have a stock screener. So the stock screener helps students understand, find stocks. Especially for younger students, they're really going to go with buy what you know, or they're going to buy, companies they're familiar with. But the high school students who might be a little bit more interested in investing, they might be able to use the stock screener to filter down some options that meet their criteria. Up here is our Learning Center. So everything that's in our assignments and more is also in our Learning Center. So there's teacher resources that have lesson plans, especially is something that we would like to point out. We have a teacher's guide that works through it in detail. We have presentation templates. So a lot of our most popular lessons that we have in our assignments tool, we also have available as Google Slides presentations that you can download and customize for your class. So let me open this up here. And like the what is a stock presentation, you can get this as a PowerPoint or as a Google Slides and use it as is, or you can customize it as you like for your class. We also have lesson plans built in here. We have a customizable lesson plans that talk about exercises you can use both in the stock game and in the assignments, how they work together to cover certain topics in a personal finance or economics class. So it's hard for me to go through these in detail with a group of teachers from different subjects and grade levels, but at a high level, if I click in here and I look at opportunity cost, what it does is it gives me some key vocabulary to cover. It has a bunch of different activities I can use. So in this case, I have 6 different activities with about the time requirement it would take for your class. So if you're trying to cover opportunity cost, you can check out this lesson plan, which gives you it gives you some options of how to use this both on resources outside of the SMC, but most of them use objects from the Learning Center within the SMC. And if I go back here, and there's also a teacher guides talking about how to actually view all the reports for your students. I'll cover that in a little bit of detail soon though. Otherwise with their portfolio, the biggest thing for students at the start is the tutorial videos that they'll find at the end here. So this walks through what the pages are, how do they trade a stock, how do they look at their portfolio, and everything in between. So this is a pretty good place for students, even if they do complete the tutorials, they'll earn a special badge they can show off on the rankings page too. So back to everything else, the lessons, I did mention these briefly. There's dozens of lessons in there for personal finance and economics. There's some minor stuff about investing just so students can understand how to use the SMC. Teachers can see their students' progress from their teacher reports. I'm going to cover the teacher reports right at the very end so you can see what it looks like on your end and ask me any questions. But now that I've circled around it a few times, I'm going to take a minute to mention the budgeting game. So the SMC starting this semester has a new budgeting game. Basically, it puts your students in the role of a college student with a part-time job. They need to manage their cash flow over the course of 18 simulated months. Each month of the game takes about 20 minutes in the real world to complete, and it has a bunch of other short lessons built into it. After 6 months, the students graduate from their part-time job and they start their full-time job. They get more income and more bills. So just so you have an idea of what it looks like, up at the top of the screen here I have this big red button, switch to the budgeting game, which I'm going to click, which starts the budgeting game. So the student starts, they have a prompt of what their objectives are in the game, which is they need to build up their savings by hitting savings goals each month and build up their emergency fund so they're able to take cash crunches when they come. They need to improve their credit score. We give them a credit card and they'll earn credit score points by using it responsibly, and they need to improve their quality of life. So there are cases where sometimes it's a better idea to spend money than save it. So long as they've hit their savings goal for the month, the game does reward them by spending some money on themselves. We have a tutorial built in here, so how to play. So this goes through in detail of what each part of the budget game is, with tutorial videos and stuff for students. When I actually go to play, you can see the game looks like a calendar. And the way it works is I roll the dice and I move through time. So the game is starting out by asking me to choose my expenses. So where do I want to live? I mentioned the quality of life earlier. Taking the more expensive places earns more quality of life. So cell phone plan, what do I want here? Grocery plan. And you'll notice these expenses are actually quite low because when they're a college student with a part-time job, we're assuming they have roommates. When I go to actually play the game, the first thing I get is my monthly budget builder. So it starts me off by saying, here's the income you're expected to get earned this month. It looks like I'm getting only 17 hours at my job, which is okay. $306 a paycheck. I'll be getting $1,224. I'm going to earn some tips because I work at a cafe, and I have my after-tax income. Now I look at all the bills I'm expecting to get this month. At the top here would be anything that's carrying over from the previous month. I have no bills outstanding, so I'm in good shape. Here's all the bills I'm expecting to pay. I also have my gas and groceries as variable expenses. And then we ask the students to guess how much they're going to be spending for their unplanned expenses. We find that when students are learning about budgeting for the first time, they really think it is just listing out your bills. But estimating what you're going to spend on everything else is the really hard part. I happen to know that students on average are going to spend about $500 on other expenses each month, which means that my total expenses is actually pretty close to my expected income. And last, they need to set a goal for their savings goals. So I have $1,100 in expected income, $1,200 in expected expenses. That sounds like I'm going to have a pretty hard month. But I also need to build my savings account. And we award the most points to students who use a pay-yourself-first saving strategy. So regardless of my expenses are, my goal should be saving 10% of my income, which is $110. I'll put $112 just to make sure I have my full 10%. The game is telling me this is going to be quite hard, and I know it is. But there's ways that students can earn extra money in the game to make up for that shortfall. So starting my month, and on every weekend, the students choose how they're going to spend their time. So they can work extra hours. So I'm going to have to work extra hours a couple times this month in order to pay that shortfall and hit my savings goals. I can socialize with my friends, which gives me good quality of life points. I can do household chores, things like clipping coupons. This usually saves me money in the long term. Or I can study. I am a college student, and if I don't study, I'm going to start failing my exams. All of these have benefits, but they also have drawbacks. If you ignore some of these too long, students are going to start getting related expenses. So for example, if I never do my household chores, my landlord will do an inspection of my property and send me a fine because I have a cockroach problem. If I never study, I'm going to eventually have to hire a private tutor to catch up on all my classes. I also mentioned earlier that partway through the game, the students graduate from college and start their first full-time job. The students who studied a lot actually start with a higher income on their full-time job. So we really do encourage the students putting some extra time into improving their human capital. So I'm going to study, and by studying, I get this is a card that I'm using for testing. This is on my testing site. But events happen throughout the game asking students to pay other expenses, or sometimes they can earn extra income. I can see over here, I have a bill due, so I need to pay my rent. So to pay my rent, I go over here to look at my rent bill. I can pay it using my debit card or my credit card. If I'm going to use my credit card, I'm going to pay it. Now I see that I actually used up all my credit limit, so I need to actually go to my credit card and pay off my credit card bill before I can use any more of it. And if I keep a high balance like this, and you can see I'm getting an alert, I'm going to start losing credit score. But if I make my credit card payment on time, then my credit score improves. And if my credit score improves, eventually my credit limit also increases. So it all works together really well. As the students play through the game, they go through each month, they get all those other expenses. There's some mini games built into it and extra lessons that prompt students to learn things about what is a debit card and what is a credit card. Viewing how to manage their bills if they're not sure they're able to pay everything each month. And generally tips and tricks on how to improve their personal finance and be successful in the game. So the budget game itself opens on February 1st, so you'll be able to take a look at that with your class at the time. And if you're taking part in the SMC, you don't need to use the budget game, but your students have the option of jumping in this if they want to. There's going to be a button for them. They can try it out if they're curious. So, as I mentioned, in the budget game, the key objectives: hitting the savings goals each month. Setting a savings goal of 10% and hitting it is how students get the vast majority of their points. They also get bonus points when they start filling up their emergency fund. So when they put their first $500 in their savings account, they get some bonus points, and when they put $1,000, they earn some bonus points. Building their credit score. So every time they pay their credit card on time, their credit score goes up. Every time they go a day with using more than half their credit limit, their credit score goes down. Quality of life, and the quality of life is worth the least points, but it teaches students that you can't just save every penny. You really need to spend some money on yourself sometimes. If you try to just maximize your net worth and neglect your own self, your game score is going to be lower than people who are having a more balanced approach. And I see some people are pretty excited about the budget game, and we're very much looking forward to your feedback as soon as you actually start getting into it. And last but not least is teacher reports. So you as a teacher, when you log into the SMC, are going to have your teacher reports, which is where you can see everything your students have been doing. So I go back to the account that I just registered a few minutes ago. Yep, here we go. At the top of the page here, I have my instructor and administration. And just to confirm, can everyone still see my screen? Great. So I'm going to instructor administration at the top here. As the teacher, every time you log in, this is where it's going to take you. It has the list of your students. Next to each student, you have a button to view their portfolio. So you can see their current stock holdings, all their transactions, their account balances, their profit, and any trade notes they made when they were actually making those trades. And there's another button for budget game details, which is going to show you their current date in the game, how much they're spending in expenses each month, and their scores across all of those different metrics. There's also tabs up here where you can see their transactions, their checking account, money they're transferring to their savings account, and anything they're putting on their credit card. The students also can see their bank statements too inside the budget game. We don't hide that from them. The tabs up here, the assignments report will show you the progress of your students in the assignments that are in here. So it looks like it's taking quite a while to load. I'm not sure why. I'll need to look into that. But you'll be able to see the grades and the progress the students have made on all the assignments that we have set up. Let me refresh this. Something looks stuck. Here we go. So next to each student, there's a details button, and it shows you where they are and all that stuff that we have in the assignments. You can switch between if you're looking in the elementary, middle school, or the high school assignment. The rankings shows your class rankings for the stock game. I don't have any rankings yet because this uses my end of day values. Activity report just gives you a bunch of extra information. So when's the last time the students logged in, made a trade, and things like that. And the budget game report is even more detail on the budget game stuff for your class with more detail buttons that we were looking at before. So you'll also see that we have SMS Teacher Tools tutorial up here on the right hand side. I'm actually going to replace that with this video, the recording of this workshop that we're giving right now. But otherwise, that's all there is. There is quite a lot. If you have any English as a second language students, we do have Spanish is available for most of the stock game. The budget game is currently only available in English. But otherwise, that's all I have to cover. If you have more students, you can do that right from your instructor administration page. If you have any support issues, our live chat is always standing by to help. Does anyone have any questions for me today?
So if you have questions, now's the time when you can turn on your microphone. There's like a blue button at the bottom and in the middle of your window here. And if you click on that, that should turn on your microphone to make it a little bit easier for you to ask questions. And so there was a teacher who said that she was having issues with her students logging in. They kept getting error messages. Any idea what might have been going on with that, Kevin?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Normally, if a student gets an error message when they're trying to log in, it means that usually it's because there was an issue when the teacher was registering. They might have registered twice, and someone asked us to remove those students' accounts. And then we might have removed the wrong ones. It's very rare, but in either case, if you talk to our support team, they can fix it within 2 seconds for your entire class. We just need to know what the accounts were.
Okay, so you recommend that you click on that We're Online little chat box? Is that what she should go to?
Yeah, this is the support. We also have a support desk. If you go under About, there's the Contact Us page. This would let you submit a ticket, which if you think you have a more complicated problem, like there's some stock price you want us to investigate, this goes to our full support help desk where we do our audits and things too. The live chat, we have a couple agents there that can help with most account issues off the top of their head though.
Lachey, do you think that will help you? So Batul says that she'll need help creating the challenge as she missed the first few minutes. Yes. So let's see. Oh, it's placement. Okay. So Kevin said earlier that the Florida Council will be posting a video of this workshop on their website. So you should be able to have access to that. I'm not exactly sure when it will be posted, but the stock market challenge begins on January 25th. So I imagine they'll set that up a little bit earlier before that. We'll probably have it posted before that.
So Batul mentioned that she might need help actually getting set up. All you really need to do is from the Florida Council's website, we have the stock market challenge link here. This takes us to the stock track page, and then you just click register for free. All you really need to do is fill out the form. It's really straightforward. It doesn't take more than 2 minutes. But if you do,
and when you fill out the form, is it automatic, or is there somebody checking to ensure that you are indeed a Florida teacher?
All automatic. If we do audits once in a while, where if anybody looks suspicious, we'll reach out to them to confirm, but we don't make you wait. So you could, okay. I mean, it's very common where some teachers wait until the day they're actually starting to talk about this with their students and then create it in class and then just give the usernames to the students. But we recommend against that.
Right.
Are students playing in teams or individually? Now, historically, teachers would put students in teams of 2 or 3 students. And down here, you can independently specify the number of students you have and the number of teams that you're registering. But with the budget game and getting better reports for how all the students are working together, it works better if you have one student with one account. You can still have students work in teams and work together and plan together and have group presentations and things, but for your own reports and knowing what students are doing, it works better if you have one-to-one.
All right. Any other questions specifically for Kevin? I have a teacher who's joined us today, Carrie Gullett. Carrie is she up until very recently, she was a classroom teacher. Now she's working as a special ed resource teacher, I believe that. I'm going to take presenter from Kevin here. And Carrie, are you online? I can't unmute you. I see you online. There you go, unmuted. How are you today, Carrie?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. And am I right that you are now a special ed resource teacher? Is that correct?
So I am like a push-in ESE teacher. So I work with the students who have IEPs, but in their classroom.
Gotcha. And up until very recently, you were a classroom teacher teaching, but